All right.
Good afternoon, evening, whatever it is, everybody.
It's evening, Doug.
Yeah, 5:14 p.m.
It is evening. Yes.
We were supposed to start at 5 p.m.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
and-
Watch, guys. Wait for it. It always happens, right? What did I do?
I was ready to go.
I was
at 5 o'clock.
I was ministering.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was pastoring, doing some pastoring.
Pastoral ministry.
Yes, right on the
Really?
phone. You can ask Liz. She was out there with her dog. She saw me sitting in the car. She kind of looked at me and ran in. I hope she didn't call somebody. I was like, Liz, it's me.
You were sitting in your car, huh?
I was sitting in the car on the phone. So maybe Drew's watching, and his boy, I forget his boy's name. Sorry, man. But I was just talking to him. I said, look, I got to go in here and do this podcast. It's Black and White Theology.
That's right. Well, so welcome back.
You didn't change your name since I left. Okay.
Well, we did a white and white theology with Dan Harney a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I know. I heard about
Did
that.
you? Oh, you didn't watch it? You didn't watch it?
Well, I heard about it.
Oh, you okay?
And they was like, wait, what happened? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I got to talk to Doug. I mean, nothing against you, Dan. But, yeah, man, what's up? Black and White Theology. So
You're like, oh, I can't make it. I got this going on and that going on. I can't do it.
You couldn't find a sub?
I did find a sub.
How many black friends you had? See, now it's coming out. I'm his only black friend. Ain't that a shame?
Oh, I didn't know we were friends.
Oh, man. No, I caught a little glimpse of you guys talking about discipleship, right?
We were, yeah.
Yeah, I caught a little
Yeah.
bit of it.
So when you can't make it, sometimes I'll grab one of our guys here and we'll talk about something going on here with the church and the ministries here and philosophy.
Right.
And I cannot get on my YouTube channel right now, but that's okay.
Okay.
If you ask a question on YouTube, I won't be able to find it.
Well, maybe John can get on and he can let us know. Since
John
he's a
can
big
monitor
director in
the
back.
YouTube broadcast.
Audio director, sound engineer.
All right,
all that
so let's get into it today.
Where are we going?
It's been actually a few weeks since because last week there was this snowstorm.
That's right. That's why we didn't meet.
That is why, yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't
okay.
your fault.
Okay. I knew it wasn't. I had to remember why.
I mean, it was your fault that you were late today, but it wasn't your fault we didn't meet last week. So,
Lord help him. Open up his eyes, Jesus.
yeah. So
All right.
So if we revisit kind of the purpose of the podcast, one of the things is that we wanted to accomplish with this is to be able to discuss some things that we maybe normally wouldn't address in detail on, say, a Sunday morning sermon.
You just don't have the time.
Yeah. So, and the idea of a Sunday morning sermon is an expositional teaching through the Bible,
Yep.
right? So, and that's not what this is. This is not another Bible study or Bible teaching. This is, let's talk about issues in culture that affect us as Christians and address them and talk about them through a spiritual, biblical, theological lens.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay? So I just think it's important to kind of keep ourselves reminded of what our purpose is and what we're after with the podcast here. And as a ministry to the people of Faith Church, Allentown Fellowship Church, and, of course, anybody else that gleans anything from this or participates in it, you're welcome to ask questions and think through the issues with us, because we want to be a help and an encouragement and a challenge to anybody that we can. So feel free to share the podcast on your social media site, Facebook or YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever you use. TikTok. I haven't jumped into the TikTok world yet.
Come on, get with it, bro.
Yeah.
Get with it, man. I was on there for about 2 seconds.
Did you really go on it? Did you really?
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm not doing it.
Did you do a dance? Or
No, I didn't
That's
do
how
a
it started,
dance.
right? Like people doing dances?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Anyway.
Yeah, whatever. I'm too old, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, you are. So, so episode 23. We're ticking
All right,
closer
two
closer
more.
to
20,
episode
25.
24.
We get mugs. He
Then
said
25,
it.
yeah.
I think you said that episode 12, somewhere around there.
I probably did.
You did.
Yeah.
Trust me.
So
I'm getting that reparation. I believe that. I don't have to drink out of a can anymore. Boy, I can pour it into the mug.
All right. For all of your suffering and oppression, you deserve a mug.
Oh, my God. Sound like a commercial. Don't you deserve a mug
You
today?
deserve one today.
Oh,
on that note, episode 23, we're going to talk about cancel culture a little bit today.
All right. That's where you get banned, right?
Yeah.
Get thrown off of social media.
So on that note, let me ask you this, okay? Because this is a term that's thrown out there a lot now in our culture, and it's become kind of an issue that people are talking about. And so I want to address it from a spiritual, biblical lens.
Yeah.
So when I use the term cancel culture, what do you think of? How would you define that?
Well, and my definition could be off because depending on who you listen to, it's defined different ways. But when you say to me cancel culture, I'm thinking a mindset out here in the culture that if you say something that is inappropriate or offensive, and you have a voice, a platform, that you're going to be booted off of that.
Okay.
So in other words, your mic's going to be shut down.
Right. So one of the biggest illustrations of that is Donald Trump is kicked off Twitter.
Right.
Because they felt, the powers that be at Twitter, felt that what he was saying violated whatever standards
that they have. Yes.
So, so they said, we're off. Now, a lot of people get upset about that and say it's an attack on freedom of speech, right?
Yep.
The pushback to that is it's a private company. They can kick off whoever they want to kick off. How do you respond to that?
Well, in some sense, there's some truth to that in this regard. Pennsylvania is a hire fire at will state. So if a private corporation says, we're going to silence you because we don't like what you're saying, do they technically have the right to do that? As a private company, as a private entrepreneur, I think they do. If they don't, then you're opening up a can of worms where you're saying the government should be able to step in and say, well, you can't, right? Now you're crossing lines between private ownership, capitalism, and a government coming in and telling you how to run your company.
And so,
in some respects,
there is some legislative push that some people want to, because and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, John, maybe you've read a little bit more about this, but right now, you can't really bring any litigation or lawsuits against some of the social media companies in the same way that you could
like a private,
like other media companies, like news stations.
See that?
And
I'm
stuff
not familiar
like that.
with that. Okay.
And so they're kind of protected from litigation right now. And so there is a push to say, hey, listen, you should be able to sue them if you feel like they have unjustly
represented
banned
you or something like that.
Right.
Whereas,
or if they violated your rights somehow, you should be able to bring litigation against them. And now they're kind of protected from that. And I think that's where the litigation issue comes in.
Okay.
Because to your point, they are a private company that has the freedom to, listen, a store can say, hey, you can't come in here unless you have, no shirt, no shoes, no service, right?
Right. It's their store, right? It's a private company. And so, and again, I'm not familiar with this media thing. So if the local news were to misrepresent me, ABC, whoever, could I then sue ABC?
Bring a defamation suit against them.
I could bring a defamation suit.
Yeah.
So they're saying that right now, Twitter and these other YouTube, whatever platform, you can't do that because they're private?
That is my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah. And if we're off on that, I'm not going to die on that hill. But
but
anyone who's listening, correct us.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah.
And not understanding all the law behind, but that's my initial response to your question.
Right.
It's like if this is a private company, do they have a right to say, no, I don't like what, even though the company is one that deals with social media, which I get, it's worldwide, but it's still a private held company.
Okay.
Are they going to, now, let me follow up with this. Do I think that even though they're a private held company, that there may be some biases there in who they are shutting down and not allowing on. Absolutely. But that's another conversation. That's more of a moral conversation. Do they have the legal right? To me, that's the other side of the coin.
Right. Yeah, and so it would seem like right now, certainly they have the legal, or they're not breaking any laws by doing that.
Yeah, in that sense, right.
The issue then becomes one of, okay, are we starting to see a push that limits free speech, not from the government, but from the powers of Silicon Valley and the tech companies?
Right.
And again, that's more of a societal, social concern. Are we losing our freedom of speech because those that control the social media platforms
pick and choose, or can
shut you down and only and as a result only push the narrative that they want. And I think that's a real concern. I think it's a valid concern. And so what the question is, what can you do about it, right? If you get banned from Twitter, if we get banned from YouTube or Facebook because they don't like something we say on the Black and White Theology podcast.
Something we just might have said. They might be about to, are we still on, John?
And after
are we still live?
we might get canceled, right?
We might get canceled, right.
You know?
Well, and I guess one of the things, again, right now, the way things are now, in a free market, right? And I forget the name of the company. I'm not trying to promote any company, but I know there are a number of like conservative talk show hosts that are leaving on their own and going to this other platform it's like YouTube. I forget the name of it.
You're talking about Parler?
Parler is one, but there's another one. Is Parler Twitch?
Twitch. Okay.
No, I thought it started with an R or something. But anyway, it caught my attention because all of these, they would deem themselves conservative talk show hosts are starting to push, hey, get off of the mainstream ones and get on this one because there's millions of us out there and we just all need to leave and go on to it. So to your point, what can you do about it? Well, that's one thing you can do.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can move to another platform.
You can move to another platform.
Yeah, you could try to push for certain legislation to be passed that could help in that area. Because as a citizen of the United States, freedom of speech is an important thing.
Right.
It does seem like that's being infringed upon.
Yeah. What happens if I have a book that I write that may be highly controversial and Macmillan or some company refuses to publish it? Is that wrong?
Yeah, right. No, they can choose not to.
It's their company.
or if they publish your book and decide later on to pull it off the shelves, whatever's within their contract legally, they can
and
do.
so I think some of that, some of that is going on. So anyway, but go ahead.
But so the warning, I think that, and the red flag for Christians in the United States is probably wake up out of your slumber a little bit and realize that the things that we have held to be truth from Scripture goes directly against what the majority of our culture is accepting as truth.
Right. Yeah.
And as a result, the enemy is going to try to shut that down and cancel that.
Absolutely.
So what I would tell the church now is expect there to be more and more opposition to what we would say is truth biblically.
A biblical worldview.
Correct.
A biblical worldview it's happening now, and I agree with you. It's going to happen more. The biblical worldview, if you hold to a biblical worldview, you are going to be labeled intolerant.
Correct.
Dangerous, all those negative words. Well, now watch this. Those negative words in some of these platforms in their policy, you can't put stuff up like that.
That's right.
So by default, goodbye, Christian message. And I agree with you.
There will be, and there is, and will be an increasing attempt to silence that voice.
Yep, absolutely.
To silence your voice, to silence my voice. Right now, it's being focused upon, I would say, mostly conservative voices, whether they're Christian or not.
Yeah.
Whether YouTube decides to demonetize their videos, so now they can't make any money off their videos.
Right.
That's one way of trying to shut down the voice behind the microphone on that channel. But it is going to affect us as Christians more and more because our worldview runs contrary to the secular humanistic worldview that exists today, that is prevalent in our culture today, that is growing in our culture today, and growing rapidly. And so Christianity and the truth of Christianity, the culture is going to try to cancel that. Now, here's the thing. That's nothing new for Christianity.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, man, just look at church history. Oh, my goodness. Right. It's nothing new. I think it feels more in our face because of social media.
Well, and the fact that we haven't had to worry much about it in our country in our lifetimes anyway. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, wow. I was talking to one of our staff members the other day. I can't remember who it was, but I said this. We were having a conversation just about where we are in our country and what we're seeing happen. And one of the things I said is what surprised me when COVID hit and then George Floyd hit and the protest and everything just turned on a dime. I mean, chaos ensued, fear was everywhere, and it was amazing to me to see how quickly we could control, people. Hey, stay inside, don't go outside, put this on your face, do this or that. And my goal isn't to argue whether those things were right or wrong.
I understand. But
how quickly everybody was like, okay.
The world.
Yeah.
The world was kind of
the globe was
shut down.
Shut down everything.
And told what to do and not to do.
And everybody, and it hit me like, oh my word, this, I thought if you were going to see something like that happen or see more of a totalitarian kind of takeover, that it would be something that would be slow and methodical, and then it would kind of ease into it. And then we went through COVID, and I thought, oh wow, it can happen quickly. And then it hit me. Maybe we have been the frog in the pot that's slowly boiling. Maybe we haven't. Maybe there have been voices for decades saying, hey, be careful. Hey, this is coming. Here's a warning. Here's the red flags. And by and large, maybe myself included, the North American church has simply ignored it or dismissed it or hasn't paid attention to it. And then all of a sudden something like COVID hits. And then the George Floyd thing happens. And all of these things that have kind of been slowly boiling, it provided the soil where it was just ripe for things to really happen really quickly.
And those things that happen quickly, it's almost like, what was controlling all those things? The media, right?
Yeah.
And I think to your point of this, and again, not arguing all the ins and outs behind all this, but to your point, I think we've been groomed as a culture to believe 30-second sound bites.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay? So now, after a culture begins to say the 30-second sound bite is the truth, now whoever controls those 30-second sound bites, they now control the thought of the people.
Yeah.
That's what I see
Yeah.
that fed into a lot of the things that are happening in our world right now.
And the language they used was very virtuous, very moralistic language, right? If you care about people, you will do this.
Right. So they appeal to the morals.
If you care about justice,
then you will do this.
If you, And so it puts people in a corner to say, well, I care about people. Right? So I better do exactly what they say.
Yeah.
Well, I care about, social justice and racial equality and all of those things.
Yeah.
So, I care. So tell me what I need to do to show that I care.
Right.
And I'll do that.
Yep.
And I think a lot of well-meaning people and Christians kind of struggled with all of a sudden this language that was couched in moralistic, virtuous type of things. And as a Christian, I don't want to be looked upon as not virtuous.
Yep. So yeah, absolutely.
So therefore, I need to go along with what they're saying and still be a Christian.
Yeah.
And again, not everything that the media or that the world is promoting is inherently evil or wrong.
Yeah.
But we have to be prudent as Christians to look at this and say, okay, where is this coming from? What is the history of this? How did we get here, right? How did we get to well, really, the situation that we found ourselves in 2020 with the pandemic, with the George Floyd and the social justice movement and those things. How did we get there? Now, whether you say, I think that was all good and right and it should have been, is one thing, but you have to at least step back, or if you just agree and say, no, the government was wrong, the social justice issue.
Yeah.
What is behind all of that?
Right.
What led to all of that? And my point was, have we been the frog in water that's slowly boiling and didn't realize our water's starting to boil?
Yeah.
And I think that's true to some degree.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And again, I go back to, 15 years ago, people read a newspaper, right? Mm-hmm. They saw the caption and they read the whole story. That's not our culture today. No.
Well, and then you would have debate back and forth on whether or not you agreed with it, whether or not it was true, whether or not. Yeah. And what cancel culture has done is it's eliminated that healthy
other view
debate to say, hey, let's sit and talk about this. Did you hear this? Did you read that in the paper? Yeah. What do you think about that? Well, I'm not so sure about it. I think this. Yes. Yeah. Well, I think this. And you have healthy debate where you weigh the evidence, right? And you weigh the argument, and you have discussions on both sides, and then you make a determination of hey, I think this was good, or I think this was right, or I think there are parts of it that were bad that we need to reject.
Yep.
And it seems like that's been removed, and I think that's one of the results of, if you want to use the term cancel culture, so if you ask me what I think of when I think of cancel culture, there has been a worldview, and it is exactly that, a worldview put out there that says you must adopt this worldview, and if you don't, we will shut you down. We will silence your voice, and we will cancel you. Okay, and that's what we're seeing happen. Right. And again, it's not exclusively with the Christian community, right? But you see it with people that are Christians, or people that have conservative kind of Judeo-Christian ethical values, people that would be, even though they may not be Christian, be in agreement with some of the things that the Bible does say with regards to, say, sexuality and moral issues that we're wrestling with in the culture. And so here's just a couple examples, right? The actress that played on the Disney, John, what was her name? Gina. She played the Mandalorian. You ever watch, you a Star Wars guy?
I saw the first Star Wars.
You don't strike. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. You're not a Star Wars guy.
I saw the first. I haven't. Yeah.
I'm not a Star Wars guy, but I'll watch them. Right.
Okay.
Now Paul Pearl, one of our pastors here.
Oh well, he dressed up like Darth Vader one year, right? Remember that?
Wait, who is it?
Gina.
No. Who did he dress up like?
Darth Vader.
No, I was asking Ron.
Oh,
Darth Vader.
What is it? Did you say Dark Vader?
Did you say Dark Vader?
I might have. I don't know. Darth?
Yeah. You don't know his name?
I'll play that.
Isn't it Dark Vader?
The most notorious villain in all of...
it's Darth?
Darth. D-A-R-T-H.
Are you serious?
You never knew that?
All these years, I thought it was Dark Vader.
You thought they were just being racist.
That just messes
up
the
evil guy is dark.
Yes. I was like, that was so racist. And then all the good guys, no. Really, it's dark?
Darth.
Wow. Darth.
Oh, D-A-R-T-H.
Wow, that's okay. All right, Darth.
It's a Sith thing, if you know anything about.
He doesn't. He didn't even know his name was Darth.
No. Well,
he thought he was Dark Vader.
That's funny. Dark Vader.
I was pretty sure I heard that.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not Darth Vader.
So anyway,
it doesn't. It's not a blemish on your character. It's just funny.
Anyway,
it is.
This actress,
Gina Carano.
Gina Carano. She plays in this Star Wars series on Disney streaming service.
Oh, okay.
They created a Star Wars series there.
Okay.
And so she was an actress on it, and she started tweeting some things that were just kind of conservative ideas and stuff like that, questioning some of the things in society within the election and following kind of totalitarian types of governments or the way that you look at people. If you don't look at them as people, you could end up, how do you think? And she drew an analogy to Nazi Germany and how did they end up there. If we don't remember some of the things from our history, then we'll be destined to repeat them. Nothing that was overly, but they just fired her. They let her go.
They
And
fired her.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she was a pretty prominent actress in the series, and very good.
Did they put a statement out as to why?
I don't know. I didn't.
Okay.
So they fired her. They let her go. You're done. Chris Harrison, The Bachelor.
Wait, Chris Harrison. Oh, I'm thinking Harrison Ford.
No, not
Somebody
Harrison
else,
Ford.
right?
Chris
Because he was in Star Wars.
So
wasn't
Chris Harrison's been the host of The Bachelor, which is a terrible TV show.
he? Yeah, I don't waste time with those shows, man.
But there was a big controversy on The Bachelor where one of the contestants, pictures of her from like 2 years ago of her attending a party on a southern plantation where they dressed up like old-timey southern
Yep.
girls and had this party, and
like reenactment type, whatever. Or
yeah, I think it was just like a
Costume
costume
party type
party where
thing?
they
Okay, all right,
dressed
yeah.
up like old-timey southern people,
yep.
and they were on a plantation.
Yep.
And which, by the way, is something like that offensive to you?
To me personally,
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be offensive to me. I don't know the context of what they're. Is this? I mean, are they dressed up like slave owners? Are they
Well,
reenacting owning slaves, or is it just?
I don't think.
It's
Certainly,
about
certainly they were dressed the way slave owners would have dressed. I don't know that they were tying what they were doing to slavery.
Right. That would be my point, right?
Right, I don't know that they were like, "Hey, look at us! We're a bunch of slave owners. Look
Right,
how we're dressed."
right.
I think they were just having a party
Yep.
in an old-timey
as
southern
if they
plantation.
were, as
right.
if they were in the colonial days.
Well, not necessarily.
Well,
yeah, whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
No, again, it depends on the motivation of what they were
So
doing.
the issue was she
So she went
had
to
a
one of
picture
these.
where
Oh.
she was at one of these parties
Okay.
dressed up this way.
Okay.
And it became a whole huge controversy. Oh, how could you be a part of such a racist
Okay.
thing?
Okay. Okay.
And again, maybe there's more to it than I know.
Right.
Again,
Right.
I don't watch TMZ every night and watch these
Yeah.
things. But I did read an article where they were just crucifying this girl over her attendance at this party on this plantation. Plantations are, they're known just for slavery and their abuse of slaves, and which all of that's true. And so white people attending parties like this in their own mind think, that's why it's interesting because a lot of people in the black community are extremely offended by that stuff because of the history of slavery and plantations.
Yeah.
Some people maybe not so much. Can you celebrate a portion of culture from the past that yes, there was slavery there, but not celebrate the slavery aspect
Right,
of it? That's
right.
where I think you were getting
Exactly.
with it.
Detach it from the
Can you dress up
yeah.
like a woman from the 1800s during the time of pre-Civil War and not be called a racist?
Right. Right. Yep.
It doesn't seem like in our culture you can.
No, you can't. You can't, and that's part of the issue I have because everything is tied to that. Well, that's racist, and it's like, listen, and the minute you push back and say, well, let's look at that and see if it really is, then you get ostracized, right?
Yeah.
So-
and that's my point, because as soon as you say, hold on a minute, is that really
Right.
a racial issue? All of a sudden, you become a racist. So as white people are hesitant to, well, I don't want to be looked up as non-racist, so
Yeah.
I'll go along with that. Yeah, and so, that was horrible. She should have never done
Right.
that. She should
Right.
she should be kicked off the show. She
Right.
should be, and that's what was happening.
Yeah.
A bunch of people
Yeah.
were feeling pretty moral, pretty virtuous. I've never been to an old-timey Southern plantation dress-up party, but she has.
Yeah.
And she should be kicked off the show. How horrible, what a racist, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so Chris Harrison, the host of the show, went on social media and said, hey, guys, let's be a little sympathetic here, right? And he may have used the term woke police to describe some of the people that were attacking her. And within a week, he had resigned or stepped down from his... I mean, he's been on that show for 20 years, hosting
Wow.
it.
Okay.
Just because he supported this girl who,
Yeah.
right? And those aren't even issues of even Christianity.
Right. Just social issues.
But those are just
Yeah.
social issues
Yeah.
that, as Christians, we're looking at saying, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And how do we deal with this? And so, yes, there's a warning to us that they're certainly going to come after and try and cancel the Christian
Right.
worldview
Yeah, that
and the
biblical
voice
worldview.
that
Yeah,
proclaims
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
That's certainly going to happen. But you can sit here and say, well, I don't have a podcast or a blog, or I'm not on TV. I can tweet stuff, or I can put stuff on my Facebook page, and I can get put in Facebook jail for a few days, and they can try to shut me down that way, and that certainly happens. And yet, most people aren't like you and I, pastors on a stage preaching, and my sermons are broadcast online. We're online right now talking about these issues. There's a very real possibility that they could tag this as
Hate
something,
speech.
that they don't like, and they could shut it down.
Yeah.
And so there's the warning that could happen. But I think there's also this aspect of, I think there's Christians all over saying, well, how do I deal with this? Do I condemn the woman who went to the plantation dress-up party? Do I try to support her right to do that? How do I look at this from a biblical worldview? Because it's happening so much. And so when you talk about cancel culture, there's a particular worldview out there that says, here's the worldview. Adopt this worldview, accept it, believe it, endorse it, or
Be canceled.
we'll shut you down.
Right.
We'll cancel you. We'll silence your voice. We'll call you whatever names we have to call you to make you look like a horrible, horrible human being.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's the culture that we live in, and that's where it's going to continue to head. So as Christians, how do we interact with that? How do we view that? What do we do with that? Because we don't, listen, the biggest issue that I run into is I don't want to be looked upon as a horrible person.
Right.
How do you respond to that when
Well,
when people say, "Oh, I'm a loving person. I
Yeah.
do love people, and I don't want to be looked upon as though I don't." And so a lot of churches, are wrestling with this, right? Like, well, we don't want to be looked upon as and called bigots and hate-filled people and racist and things like that. So there's that tension that we wrestle with, and I don't want to be canceled because I want to continue to proclaim love, right? And the grace and mercy of Jesus. So, what's your response?
I think, if, as we said, this is nothing new. From the standpoint, the Bible clearly teaches that Satan is the god of this world.
Yep.
Okay? From the time of the ascension of Christ in the first century church beginning to spread, the gospel began to spread, they were countercultural, right? We're not calling the emperor Lord. Jesus is Lord. So in a spiritual context, in a Christian context, this is nothing new. It's more in our face now because of social media and the World Wide Web. Yeah. Absolutely. So how do we navigate through it? Well, let me start with what we don't do. We don't stop standing for the truth of the gospel and what the Bible says for fear of being canceled.
Yep.
And I see churches doing that. I see evangelical pastors doing that. Well, you know what? We'll just go a little soft. We're not going to, like you said, because we don't want to be labeled that way. And what's behind that? Well, we don't want our platform shut down. Well,
and they even use the reasoning of, if my platform's shut down, then I can't share the love of Jesus.
Well, how did Paul do it? Right. I don't think he had a TikTok account.
I don't think so.
Yeah, right. So again,
Yeah.
I think for me, listen, technology is wonderful. I mean, my goodness, we can get the gospel out and everything that it does. But we don't do that at the cost of compromising the message. Yep. So what if I have a platform and I'm compromising the gospel, the clear message of what the gospel is?
So Jesus was pretty bold in proclaiming truth. How did that end for him?
Yeah, on a bloody cross, right?
Right. They called him all kinds of things.
Right. Blasphemous.
They criticized him, and who was it that criticized him the most?
The religious people and the culture.
Virtuous people.
Yeah. Believe us, right? Or get canceled.
And so what I see a direct parallel in our culture. Those people who, through their own works righteousness, their own definition of virtue, their own definition of right and wrong or morality, their worldview says we will determine right and wrong. we will determine what is loving and what is not loving.
Yep.
Right? And so they are very, to the point where I kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago. When you can look at a girl who attended an old-timey Southern plantation dress-up party and say, I've never done that.
Mm-hmm.
How dare she? All of a sudden, what does it do?
You're more righteous than her,
Bingo.
right? You're more righteous
It's a
than
form
her.
of self-righteousness
Yeah.
that is very, very close to what the Sadducees and the Pharisees were
Absolutely.
doing in Jesus' day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so Jesus says, judge not that you be not judged.
Right.
For the same judgment with which you judged others, you will be judged.
Right.
And so what's happening is the world is virtue signaling all over the place.
Yes. Yep.
All over. And they're trying to show how virtuous, because they
Yeah.
couch everything in language of virtue and morality.
Yep.
And then they judge those that don't have it. And Jesus' exhortation was to them saying, be careful you don't judge them, because the same standard by which you judge others, guess what? I'm going to use my standard to judge
Right.
you one day.
Right.
And so there is this idea that, yes, they will stand before God in judgment. Therefore, let God be the judge.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. If they hated Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
guess what?
And we have the same message.
They're going to hate you.
Right. Right.
Right?
See, here's the question, Doug. Here's the question. Are we in 2021 willing to lose some of our social media platforms
Or even some of our freedoms.
or some of our freedoms
standings.
because of the gospel?
Yep.
If it's because of the gospel, yes, I am.
Yeah.
If it's
don't
because
lose it
of the
because
gospel,
don't lose it because
yeah.
you're an idiot.
Absolutely. There's the difference, right? And so I was talking to a guy, and he was like, "Oh, Pastor Ron, we keep preaching these kind of stuff, man. What happens if they end up pulling our 503s?" I said, "Pull it."
Yeah.
What do you mean? A 503 doesn't make you the church. The church are the people, the spirit-filled people of God. We are the stones. We are the living stones. Christ is the chief cornerstone. Yeah, I know, man, but then we have to pay taxes on this building. There's no way we could. That's my fear. So what does that mean? You're going to change your message so you can keep a tax status?
Or you soften it, or you
yeah.
tweak it so that everyone around you will say,
That's a good guy over there. Right.
"Oh, look, okay, that church, what a great church."
Absolutely.
And at the end
Absolutely.
of the day, all you have, what does Jesus say? You have your reward. And your reward is this,
Yep, that's it.
the culture.
Right.
And if,
Right.
if what you want is the culture approving you,
Yeah.
I will say emphatically, you're doing something wrong.
Listen, Paul said preaching Christ is going to be an offense to people.
Yep.
They are going to hate you for it.
They will call you racist, bigoted,
Racist, all kinds of
unloving,
stuff. Absolutely.
all kinds of things.
So
right?
if you're trying to find a way to navigate in this culture and preach Christ without having the offense happen, good luck. It's not going to happen. There's only one way that can happen. You don't preach Christ. You
here's-
don't preach Christ.
Here's the problem. There are some people who call themselves Christians that are racist, unloving,
Absolutely.
bigoted.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
And so what
Absolutely.
the culture wants to do is they want to latch onto those and say, see,
Use
this
them as
guy's
the icon
Yeah, this guy is a
examples.
racist,
Right.
and he is.
Right.
So therefore, Christianity is rooted in
Yep.
in racism. This is what it
Yeah,
produces.
Absolutely.
Right?
Guilty by association.
Yeah.
Right? Now, and here's the thing. Let's flip and use that same standard on other issues. Right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, well, no, I'm not like that. Well, yeah, but if your father is and your brother is,
Yep.
then maybe you're like that too. Well, no, you got to judge me for me and my integrity.
Yep.
Then why don't you do that when it comes to Christianity?
Yep.
So there's this double standard that's out there,
Yeah.
right?
Because there will be an effort by the enemy to cancel Christianity and cancel
Absolutely.
truth,
That's,
right?
That's the bigger thing that's happening behind the scenes. And so my fear is, so again, it's nothing new. We said this. It's nothing new. Preaching Christ has been an offense from day one, right? If we're going to try to proclaim a message that is not offensive, and again, the key is the message is offensive, not that I'm offensive to you.
Right.
The message is offensive. Right?
Yes,
There's
right.
a difference there. Okay? But I'm not going to water down what the gospel is. I'm not going to water down the biblical moral ethic. so that I'm looked at as a guy who's such a friendly guy, and boy, he gets it.
Yeah.
Man, if we start to do that, and churches are doing that, the whole progressive Christianity thing, the whole McLaurin thing, and all, I'm like, what is going on here? We need to stop preaching Christ and talking about sin, and start telling people how Christ can actually help you reach your potential and love one another. You're preaching another gospel, man. But see, that will get 1,000 or 100 million views.
Yes.
And so that can stay. But when you start preaching Christ, sin, we need a Savior, redemption, I could see in the foreseeable future those kind of messages being banned. Because that's intolerant. But we shouldn't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, or if you start to talk in terms of, and I think we actually need to go into this in some detail. I know we talked about it at the beginning and early days of this podcast, but it's such an issue, and I think it's an issue where there's still a fair amount of confusion. When you talk to people who love Jesus and want to love their neighbor, but don't know what to do with the social justice issue that's all around them.
Yeah.
And there's different programs and things that churches are bringing into their ministries to address the racial divide that exists, right?
Yeah.
And are those things helpful? Are those things dangerous? We need to address in more detail what is critical race theory and how is it impacting our culture and impacting the church. So I think we need to expand this conversation even beyond that and talk through that a little bit and offer some warnings about what is cultural Marxism. And if you've never heard that term before, you need to know and understand what that is so that you can wrestle with these issues through a more informed lens.
Right.
And so we're gonna head down that road and jump into some of those issues because I think there's still so many well-meaning Christians that want to love their neighbor that are being influenced by an unbiblical worldview.
Right.
And so if we can help curb that in any way and help flash some warning lights, hey, if you see this, if you hear this, just be careful, be warned.
Yep.
This is what that's rooted in, and this is where this leads.
Yep.
And so because everything is couched in very nice, virtuous, moral language, it doesn't. Listen, Satan appears as what? An angel of light. And this is the biggest thing. When Satan attacks, he attacks through what? Through deception, through deceiving people, right? Like he is the father of lies. And so this idea of Satan as this, red-horned creature that comes after you, it's not the way Satan's described in the Bible. He's described as...
It's couched in truth.
Yes, a little bit of truth with enough lies, right? It's couched in moral, virtuous language that sounds really good on the surface.
Absolutely.
But in the end, it's not a biblical perspective. So moving into kind of another aspect of cancel culture with relation to us as Christians. One of the issues I see with cancel culture, and I brought it up, was it allows people to feel really, really good about their own self-righteousness. And so what I saw happen throughout, say just, for instance, the presidential election, I mean, Trump got hammered for, and whether you support Trump or not isn't even my issue. But just say you're an outsider looking in, Trump got hammered for being a racist and for being this or that. And so there were some people that were very much just, oh, what a horrible person, he's so terrible. And, he doesn't deserve this and he's the worst. And then come to find out there's now an investigation on their lives for sexual assault of children. Right?
Yeah.
And so what the cancel culture does is it allows us to not deal with our own
What's going on
sin
with you?
because we can look at everybody else's sin and cancel them. Nope. But I agree with this. I'm virtuous.
Yeah.
I'm righteous. And in the meantime, I've got all these issues in my own life that I'm even
Yeah.
refusing. And it
Yeah.
creates a level of hypocrisy that mirrors the hypocrisy of the scribes and the Pharisees of Jesus'
Absolutely.
day. And who did
Absolutely.
Jesus attack and go after more than anybody?
The Pharisees.
self-righteous. Yep.
The Pharisees, right?
Yep.
And again, because we're focusing on a real issue,
Mm-hmm.
racism, social injustice. Those are real issues. Okay, but when that becomes
Even relating to people with different, struggling with sexual identity and
yeah,
sexual
yeah.
orientation and things
right,
like that.
Absolutely. But when those become the only issues, now I can say, "Look at me. I'm not either one of those, right? I'm not, racist, and I'm not judging these people who want to choose their own identity. Look at that. Look at that. Look at all you who are doing that. Shut these people down. Okay, awesome. What is your issue, though? Right? And that's the danger from a Christian worldview.
Yep.
Those are not the only two issues. Those are the ones that have the spotlight right now.
This is why Jesus would say, take the log out of your own eye before you
Absolutely.
deal with other people's issues.
Right.
Deal with your own issues.
Absolutely.
Work through repentance and reconciliation there. Then you can come alongside people and obviously biblically help
yes.
them.
Yes, absolutely.
What we see in cancel culture is we just see condemnation.
Yep. Yep.
That's all I see.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't agree with our stance here? You're fired.
Yep.
Oh, you supported someone that doesn't agree with us? You need to resign.
Right. Yeah.
And then you see the people resigning. So Chris Harrison writes this. I mean, he just came back with this massive apology of how horrible he was. And so now he's repenting of stuff that I don't honestly know that he even feels like at the end of the day he should repent of, but he's doing it because his career's on the line.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
And so within the cancel culture, there's just condemnation,
Yeah.
condemnation.
Yeah.
And so as a Christian, how do we respond to just the utter and absolute just condemnation that's out there?
Well, again, so as a Christian, like what does the gospel say? How does the gospel speak to condemnation? Right.
Well, Romans 8 says there's
There
therefore
is
now no
condemnation
condemnation for those who are in
Christ. Right.
There is condemnation for those who are outside of Christ.
Absolutely, absolutely. But see, here's the thing. Here's where the Christian worldview actually deals with
Yes,
condemnation.
that's exactly right.
And actually gives the solution for people who are doing things, who are racist, people who are abusive, and like the Christian worldview actually has a solution for that, right?
Yep.
It's grace and forgiveness through what Christ did. So now that now informs the way I interact with culture.
Yeah. So what we have in cancel culture is you're canceled. And I think there's perhaps, but if you can be reformed or reprogrammed even
Right.
to think the way that you should be thinking, perhaps maybe we can give you a second chance. But
Yeah.
you don't even see that.
Right.
You just see just heavy condemnation.
Yeah.
And so I'm always one from a Christian standpoint that says, okay, people that have a past, you know what, maybe stuff from people's past does come up and it's more than just going to a costume party,
Yeah, sure.
right?
Sure.
Maybe it came out that they were involved in some, say, racist,
Right.
bigoted things. But they come and they say, you know what, that's who I used to be, but I've changed. I don't see a lot of room for,
No. It's like guilty as charged.
yeah,
Guilty as you're condemned because of that thing you said, something you might have posted 20 years ago that was racist and legitimately was racist. Therefore, whatever you're doing today, even though you may not be that same person, so what? You're canceled.
Yeah.
See, that's not the gospel.
Right.
That's not the way the Christians ought to be handling it, right? And so what you're saying is once you've done something this way, you are forever guilty of that.
Yep.
That is who you are.
yeah.
And then everything is discounted to 20 years into the future of what you're doing now. That doesn't matter.
And I think that's partially why the gospel is so offensive to our culture, because the gospel says Christ took that
There's forgiveness.
and he replaced your guilt with his
Yep.
righteousness.
Yep.
And now you're counted as righteous as Jesus himself.
Absolutely.
For a culture to look at that and say, no, you have to pay.
Right.
No, you're right. I do have to pay.
Yeah.
But how amazing is Jesus that he paid the price for me?
Absolutely.
He took the penalty for me
Yeah.
in my place.
Yeah.
And now he's changing me, and he's setting me on a new path. And I am not condemned
Right.
for anything. There's
Right.
nothing I can do now that will make God love me any more, any less than he currently loves me right
Yep.
now.
Yep.
And so the beauty of the gospel just begins to shine in these spaces that the world, quite frankly, either is offended by or just doesn't understand. And that's why Paul said the gospel for the Jews is a stumbling block. For
Yep.
the Gentiles, it's just foolishness.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
They
Absolutely.
don't, and so when you talk in terms of gospel forgiveness and reconciliation and atonement in a cancel culture world, they don't get it.
Yeah, and in a cancel cultured world, Christ is not enough.
You have to pay,
You got to meet our standard,
and you have to pay,
and then you have to pay. So
Right.
what he did on the cross was not
Yeah.
enough.
Right. So you have oppressed other people. You have to pay for
Right.
that.
Right.
You have to pay. And again, I'm not saying there aren't consequences for our sin. Right. If we
Absolutely.
do a crime, we have to go to jail. Right.
Absolutely.
Whether we're God forgave us
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah. It's not like you do a crime. Well, I'm a Christian. Christ paid it, so please don't arrest me.
So there are some aspects of the cancel culture that have brought a higher level of accountability to people who have
Yep.
had criminal things in their past that
Yep.
were swept under the rug.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I think there is a positive aspect, if you can say, of some of this, is that we are holding people.
We're watching.
Yeah, we're watching, right? So just
We're-
because you're a
yeah.
wealthy businessman doesn't mean you're above the law anymore.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
My fear is on the flip side of that is we're watching, and if we deem that what you have said or done,
Is enough.
right?
Yep.
We will judge you.
Yeah. We will judge you, and then then we will deem whether or not you are repentant enough.
Absolutely.
For our standards.
Right.
We will deem whether or not you are worthy enough to have a voice anymore.
Yep.
We will decide whether or not you've changed your opinion enough to give you that
Absolutely.
platform back or that
Right.
voice back.
Yep.
And as Christians, we say, call me what you will. What does it matter? They did the same to Jesus.
Yep.
So we speak the truth in love, but we speak the truth with boldness.
Absolutely.
We call out sin when we see it. We speak truth in the face of opposition.
Yeah.
This has been why Christians over the centuries have been arrested, tortured,
That's right.
killed, their blood shed, right? The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church, they say. And so if not for Christians who stood in the face of adversity and spoke truth and gave their lives for it, we would not be here today. So this idea that we've got to toe the line so that the culture doesn't call us bad names
Yeah.
is quite frankly absurd and ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and it's not going to happen because the cultural mindset is counter
Yep.
cultural to the biblical mindset.
Yeah. Listen, as a preacher, I'm sure you can say the same thing. There are passages I hit that as soon as I preach them, I know it's going to create tension with people in my church or people that are new to my church.
Yep.
And I may not see them back the next week. And that's a real, if you've never preached, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what that's like. And then you lay the text open, and it's a hard thing. And it talks about, say, the judgment of God upon people. And you can say, God judges sin because he hates sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that may cost you
Well, just saying
2 or
that,
3
you
families
know?
out of your church that are
Yeah.
visiting, right?
Yeah. Well, I was talking to the young people today at the high school, right? You don't say the S word.
Yeah.
You don't say sin.
Yeah.
That's hateful. Why would you call somebody a sinner? What does that do for their moral, their morals and just their morale? Like, why don't use those kind of right? That's the culture
But if
we're
you don't
in.
talk sin, you cheapen grace and you
You do.
cheapen the atonement.
Yeah. If there is no sin, then why the bloody cross?
Yep.
Right? What was that all about? Right? So listen, there's no way, again, we go back to what we said before, there's no way that you can stand for the truths of the gospel and not get pushback. And again, I agree with what you said. If you're not getting pushback, you better check what you are standing for, because if Jesus got pushed back, he told his followers, you're going to get pushed back. They persecuted me, they're going to persecute you.
They'll bring you before governors and judges.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the norm because of the message.
Yep.
It's countercultural. So if you no, we're preaching, man, we're growing. There's no pushback. We're linking arms with everybody, and and just check your message, because you may not be preaching the whole counsel of God.
Yep. Yeah. So on that note, we'll wrap it up for today, and we'll continue this discussion and delve into some of this, just because this is where we're at as a culture, and this is where
Right.
Christians are wondering, what do we do? And so the exhortation is speak truth and love people.
Absolutely.
Both can be done.
And don't bend on speaking the
In
truth
fact,
for fear of people not
The greatest way to love people is to speak
telling the truth.
truth to them,
That's right.
even if it's offensive to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
all right, we'll see you guys next week.
Maybe.
Maybe.
All right.
All right, have a great week. We'll see you.